It's your obligation to raise my kids because you could never have your own. Those words shattered my soul forever. My sister abandoned 4 children with me like someone leaving trash on the doorstep. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you for a second feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Grace Ann Miller. I'm 52 years old, and I live in San Antonio, Texas. It was an October morning in 2014 when my world collapsed like a building with no foundation. The air in my small house on the south side smelled of hot oil and freshly made flour tortillas. I had lived there peacefully for 15 years, working as a seamstress in a garment workshop. I was embroidering napkins for my best friend's wedding when I heard the roar of a truck's engine. Through the window, I saw my younger sister Stephanie get out in a hurry. She was wearing tight jeans, a low-cut blouse, and sunglasses she wouldn't take off even in church. Behind her, like lost little chicks, appeared her 4 children. Michael, 9 years old, the twins, Leo and Sam, 6, and little Daisy, just 3. The children carried torn plastic bags with wrinkled clothes that smelled of dampness. Daisy was hugging a teddy bear with one eye missing, and Michael had that serious look of a child who has seen too much for his age. "What's wrong, Stephanie?" I asked, wiping my hands on my apron. She didn't even look me in the eye. She pushed the children toward my door like someone delivering packages. "I'm leaving them with you. I can't do it anymore." My heart stopped. "What do you mean you're leaving them with me? Are you crazy?" "Listen to me carefully, Grace." Her voice had that cold tone she used when she wanted to hurt someone. "You were never able to have your own children. The Lord made you barren for a reason. Maybe so you could take care of mine. It's your obligation as the older sister. It's the only useful thing you can do with your life." Her words pierced me like knives. I had tried for years to start a family. 3 miscarriages had broken my soul. My husband had left me for being useless when the doctors confirmed I couldn't get pregnant. Stephanie knew. She knew about every tear, every failed treatment, every destroyed hope. But Stephanie, I don't know. I don't have the space or enough money to— "Stop being so dramatic," she yelled at me. "I'm moving to Miami with Robert. He's going to open a restaurant and I need to be there. The kids are just in the way. You have no life, no husband, no nothing. At least now you'll be good for something." Michael came up to me and tugged on my apron. "Aunt Grace, doesn't my mommy love us?" My heart broke seeing his little eyes full of confusion. Stephanie didn't even glance at him. "Robert says if I bring the brats, it's over between us," she continued, checking her red-painted nails. "You know what it's like to be alone, Grace. I'm not going to waste my last chance to be happy." Daisy started to cry. The twins hugged each other, trembling. And I was paralyzed, watching my sister get back into the truck. "Wait!" I yelled, running toward her. "You can't do this. They're your children." She rolled down the window and looked at me with disgust. "I did my part. I gave birth to them. I breastfed each of them for 3 years. Now it's your turn. Besides," her smile was cruel, "you always said you would have been a better mother than me. Prove it." She sped off, leaving a cloud of black smoke. The children screamed, "Mommy!" running after the truck until it disappeared around the corner. They just stood there in the middle of the street, crying with a helplessness that completely broke me. I hugged all 4 of them as I trembled with rage and terror. My 2-bedroom house, my $350 a week salary, my quiet, orderly life, everything had changed forever in 5 minutes. That night, after bathing them with the only bar of soap I had and feeding them refried beans with tortillas for dinner, I put them to bed in my own bed. I stayed on the living room sofa, staring at the water stains on the ceiling while listening to their fitful breathing. Michael couldn't sleep. He got up and sat next to me. "Auntie, are we going to make you poor?" "No, honey. We're going to be okay," I lied, stroking his hair. "Is my mom coming back?" I didn't know what to say. Deep in my heart, I already knew that Stephanie had closed that door forever. She had talked about Robert, about Miami, about a new life, as if her own children were disposable obstacles on the path to her happiness. That dawn, while the 4 of them slept huddled together in my bed, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee in my hands. The silence of my house had been filled with the breathing of others, with broken dreams, with a responsibility I hadn't asked for, but couldn't refuse. I looked at the photograph of my parents on the wall. They had taught us that family was sacred, that you don't abandon your own blood, but they had also taught me that children are a blessing, not a burden. For the first time in years, I cried without hiding. I cried for the children I never had, for the sister I had just lost, for those 4 kids who had been torn from their lives like flowers from a garden. And I cried for myself, for the 42-year-old woman who had just become a single mother overnight, with no instruction manual and no support system. The kitchen clock read 3:47 a.m. when I finally understood that my old life was over. I was no longer Grace, the lonely seamstress. I was no longer Grace, the barren woman. Now I was Grace, the only hope for 4 abandoned children, and for the first time in my life, I would have to be strong enough to save someone other than myself. The first few days were a chaos that slowly drowned me. My house, once my quiet refuge, had become a battlefield where every minute brought a new crisis. The twins, Leo and Sam, would wake up screaming at night, calling for their mom. Daisy, the little one, wouldn't eat anything but animal crackers dipped in milk. And Michael had become the little man of the house, helping me dress his siblings while I ran around trying to get to work on time. Mr. Peterson, my boss at the garment workshop, had given me a week's grace period, but his patience was running out as fast as water in a drought. "Grace, this can't go on," he told me one morning when I arrived late for the 3rd time. "You either have kids or you have a job. You can't have both." His words hit me like a bucket of cold water. My $350 a week salary was all we had. It paid the rent on my little house, the utilities, the food. But now there were 5 mouths to feed instead of 1, 5 bodies that needed clothes, shoes, school supplies, medicine. That afternoon, after picking the kids up from a school I hadn't been able to fully pay for yet, we sat at the kitchen table to go over the budget. Michael, at 9 years old, already knew how to add and helped me with the numbers while the twins played with cars made out of matchboxes. "Aunt Grace, is it enough?" Michael asked, looking at the wrinkled bills on the table. "It'll be enough, honey," I lied, ruffling his hair. "It's always enough when there's love." But it wasn't enough. I stretched every dollar until it tore. I'd buy the cheapest chicken at the local South Side market, the kind Mrs. Gable sold at the end of the day when it was about to turn. I would boil it with a lot of lemon and salt to kill any bacteria. The kids never complained, but I saw how their eyes lit up when the neighbors grilled meat on Sundays and the smell wafted through the windows. The nights were the worst. We all slept crammed into my double bed. I was on the edge, almost falling off, while 4 little bodies made room as best they could. Daisy always ended up with her feet in my face. The twins kicked all night, and Michael pretended to be asleep so I could rest. But I could feel he was awake, worried, carrying responsibilities that weren't his to bear. One morning I heard him crying softly. "What's wrong, my love?" I whispered. "I miss my mom," he confessed. "But I also hate her." "Is it wrong to hate her, Auntie?" My heart shattered into a million pieces. "It's not wrong to feel what you feel, honey. Sometimes the people we love hurt us very badly. But hate will only hurt you, not her. Do you think she'll regret it? That she'll come for us?" I didn't know what to answer. I had tried to contact Stephanie for weeks. I called every number I had, asked cousins, aunts, acquaintances. Nobody knew anything. It was as if my sister had vanished from the face of the earth, taking any trace of maternal responsibility with her. The weekends were a little more bearable. I would take the kids to Confluence Park, where they could run free while I sewed on a bench, taking advantage of the natural light to save electricity at home. Other mothers would look at me with curiosity. 4 children of such different ages, and me, a single woman clearly struggling to provide for them. "Are they all yours?" a lady asked me one Sunday. "They are now," I answered, without lying. The woman nodded with understanding. In our neighborhood, families were formed in strange ways. Children raised by grandmothers, aunts who became mothers, stepfathers who loved more than biological fathers. Poverty teaches you that family isn't always about blood, but the money still wasn't enough. I started sewing at night, after the kids fell asleep. I mended clothes for the neighbors, embroidered tablecloths for local weddings, made costumes for Christmas pageants. My eyes grew tired under the yellow light of the living room bulb, my fingers filled with needle pricks. My back hunched over the sewing machine until it ached as if I were carrying sacks of cement. The children began to adapt. Michael became my right hand, helping the little ones with their homework, making them breakfast when I worked extra shifts. The twins, despite their mischief, were good boys who obeyed without much protest. And Daisy, my little Daisy, started calling me Mama Grace instead of Auntie. The first time she did it, we were at the market buying vegetables. I lost her among the stalls and heard her cry out, "Mama Grace," in desperation. When I found her crying between a woman's legs, she hugged me so tightly I thought she would break my ribs. "Don't leave me, Mama Grace. Don't leave like my other mommy did." That night, I cried until I ran out of tears. Not from sadness, but from something more complex. It was love mixed with terror, happiness poisoned with resentment. These children were saving me from loneliness, but they were also slowly killing me with the responsibility. 3 months after the abandonment, I received the first sign that Stephanie was still alive. An envelope with no return address appeared under my door. Inside were $100 and a handwritten note. "Hope you're all okay. Robert and I opened the restaurant. I'll send more when I'm settled. Don't look for me yet. Stephanie." $100. The equivalent of less than a third of my weekly pay. After 3 months of silence, after leaving me with 4 children without explanation, after completely upending my life, $100, as if that could pay for the sleepless nights, the worries, the love I was giving her children. Michael found the note before I could hide it. "It's from my mom, isn't it?" he asked with a maturity that broke my soul. "Yes, my love. Is she coming for us?" "I don't know, Michael. I don't know." That night, as I made quesadillas for dinner with the money Stephanie had sent, I realized something had changed within me. I no longer expected her to return. I no longer planned my life thinking this was temporary. These 4 children had become mine, not because I had given birth to them, but because I was raising them with every dollar I earned, with every sleepless night, with every kiss on the forehead when they had nightmares. But I also knew this was just the beginning. $100 wasn't going to solve the years to come. The school supplies, the clothes they were outgrowing so quickly, the illnesses, the birthdays I wanted to celebrate for them, even if it was just with a cheap cupcake from the market. I stayed awake that dawn, looking at their sleeping faces and promising myself that I would be the best mother I could be, not the one they had lost, but something better, the one who stayed, the one who didn't give up. The one who loved them not despite the circumstances, but precisely because of them. Not knowing that 10 years later, the same sister who had abandoned her children with me would return not to thank me, but to take everything away. The years passed like dirty water down a drain, taking my youth and my dreams with them, without me even noticing. Michael turned 13 in silence because I had no money to celebrate. The twins started middle school with shoes that were too small, because I had spent my savings on the glasses Daisy needed to see the board. And I became invisible to everyone but them. The mothers at school treated me with that cold politeness reserved for people who don't fit in. At parent-teacher conferences, I sat alone in a corner while they talked about their husbands, their part-time jobs, their vacation plans. I listened in silence, my rough hands hidden under the table, trying not to look like what I was, an exhausted woman raising someone else's children on a seamstress's salary. And the children's father? Mrs. Davis, the PTA coordinator, once asked me. "He's not in the picture," I replied without giving details. "Oh, that's tough. But at least you have your sister to support you, right? The kids look so much like you." I stayed quiet. No one knew the truth. To the world, I was Grace Miller, a single mother of 4. No one asked why they all had last names different from mine on their school records. No one questioned why a woman in her late 40s had had babies so far apart. People prefer comfortable lies to complicated truths. Sundays were the hardest. We would go to 11 o'clock Mass at St. Joseph's, where I'd sit in the back pews with my 4 well-combed children in clothes I had ironed on Saturday night. I watched the complete families, fathers, mothers, grandparents, all united, celebrating afterward at restaurants I couldn't afford. Daisy always asked why we didn't go out for tacos afterward like the other families. Because we eat better at home, my love, I'd say, mentally planning how to stretch the pot of beans to last the whole week. Michael didn't ask anymore. At 13, he had learned to read my silences, my sighs when I checked the bills, the way I stayed up late at the sewing machine. He started working weekends bagging groceries at the corner supermarket, coming home with crumpled bills he'd place on the table without a word. "You don't have to work, honey," I'd tell him. "I want to help, Mama Grace. We're a family, right? Mama Grace." They had all been calling me that for years, even the twins, who barely remembered Stephanie. Only sometimes, when they saw perfume commercials on TV, or when a woman in high heels walked by, they would fall silent with that lost look of someone searching for something they can't name. But the letters arrived every 2 or 3 months, envelopes with no return address containing ridiculous amounts, $50, maybe $100 if she'd had a good month. Never a phone call, never a question about how her children were, never an apology, just money that felt more like an insult than help. One afternoon, I found Daisy, now 8, playing alone in the yard with dolls made of rags. "What's your doll's name?" I asked. "Stephanie," she replied without looking up. "She's a bad mommy who leaves her kids, but then she comes to visit and brings them presents so they won't hate her." My heart sank. The children knew more than I thought. They had constructed their own explanations for the abandonment, their own mechanisms to understand why their mother had left them like an unsolved problem. Christmas was the cruelest time. I watched the children write letters to Santa Claus asking for impossible things. A bicycle for Michael, roller skates for the twins, a dollhouse for Daisy. I managed to get used toys at the flea market, repaired them, painted them, wrapped them in hand-decorated newspaper. "Santa got it wrong," Leo would say when he saw his gift wasn't exactly what he'd asked for. "He didn't get it wrong, my love. He brought you something better," I'd reply, dying inside. Sam, always more observant than his twin, would look at me with eyes that seemed too old for his body. "Mama Grace, does Santa not come to our house because we're not your real kids?" Those questions killed me. You are my real kids. The real ones are the ones who stay, not the ones who leave. But society constantly reminded me of my place. At the hospital, when one of them was sick, the nurses would ask for documents I didn't have. Guardianship papers that were never filed, permissions that were never requested. Stephanie had taken their birth certificates, their vaccination records, any paper that made them legally exist. "Ma'am, we need the mother to come and authorize the surgery," a doctor told me when Sam broke his arm falling from a tree. "I am the mother," I replied with a firmness I didn't feel. "According to the documents, you're the aunt. We need to contact the biological mother." I had to lie, make up a story that Stephanie was out of the country, beg, cry until they agreed to treat my boy. Sam looked at me from the gurney, his little arm hanging at a strange angle, trusting that I would fix everything, as I always did. Birthdays became a quiet tradition. A homemade chocolate cake, candles from the 7-Eleven, presents wrapped in tissue paper. The kids never complained, but I knew their schoolmates had parties with clowns, piñatas, and rented halls. "Why don't we invite anyone?" Daisy asked on her 9th birthday. "Because the best parties are family parties, my love. Just us." The truth was, I didn't have money for a big party, and I didn't want other children to see our poverty. The toy cars made from cardboard boxes, the simple cakes, the small house with walls that needed painting. Michael helped me keep up appearances. He had become the man of the house without anyone asking him to. He helped his siblings with their homework, defended them at school when someone bullied them for not having a dad, and carried the grocery bags when I came home tired from work. "Mama Grace, were you happy before we came?" he asked me one night as we washed dishes together. The question caught me by surprise. "Why do you ask that, my love?" "Because sometimes you look so tired, and I think maybe your life was easier when you were alone." I dried my hands and knelt in front of him. "Michael, listen to me. My life before you all was empty. It was like a house with no kids running around, no laughter, no fights over the TV. It was a life without life." "Really? Really? You all gave me a purpose. You taught me what real love is. The kind that doesn't give up, doesn't leave, doesn't abandon you when things get tough. That night, tucking the four of them into our shared bed, I realized something that filled me with both terror and relief. I could no longer imagine my life without them. They were no longer my sister's abandoned children. They had become my children, the ones I had raised with my hands, with my tears, with every dollar I earned honestly. But I also knew this couldn't last forever. The kids were growing up. They would need more expensive things: high school, college, weddings, their own homes. My body couldn't handle the double shifts anymore. My eyes got tired more quickly from sewing, and my hands trembled at night from so much work. And somewhere in Miami, Stephanie was living her new life without burdens, without responsibilities, sending envelopes of money like someone giving charity, not knowing that her children no longer remembered her as a mother, but as a distant shadow who had chosen abandonment over love. Not knowing that very soon, when life turned its back on her as she had on us, she would return not to ask for forgiveness, but to reclaim what she had never valued. It was a Tuesday in March 2024, 10 years after that cruel abandonment, when I heard the engine of a new SUV parking in front of my house. Through the window, I saw a woman get out in high heels and a tight dress. It took me several seconds to recognize her. Stephanie had returned, but she wasn't the same desperate woman who had fled with empty hands. This version had obvious plastic surgery, sparkling jewelry, and that fake smile people wear when they've learned to lie professionally. Behind her, a man in a suit got out, carrying a leather briefcase. My heart stopped. Lawyers never bring good news to houses like mine. She knocked on the door with the confidence of someone who thinks the world owes them favors. I was making lunch, lentils with vegetables, the usual, while Daisy was doing homework at the kitchen table. My girl was 17 now, beautiful and smart, with dreams of studying nursing. "Mama Grace, who is it?" she asked, looking up from her books. "No one important, honey," I lied, my hand trembling on the doorknob. I opened the door, and there she was. Stephanie looked me up and down with poorly disguised disgust, evaluating my rough hands, my stained apron, my worn-out shoes. I looked at her. Perfectly white teeth, long red nails, a designer bag that cost more than my salary for 3 months. "Hello, sister," she said with a venomous sweetness. "Aren't you going to invite us in?" The man in the suit introduced himself as Mr. Ramirez. He had the cold eyes of a lawyer who charges by the hour, not for justice. "Mrs. Miller, we're here to resolve a family matter that has gone on for too long." They sat in my living room as if they owned the place. Stephanie looked around with contempt, noticing the mended curtains, the old furniture, the walls that needed painting. "Grace, we need to talk about the children," she said, crossing her legs. "And about this house." "What children?" I asked, though I knew perfectly well what she meant. "My children live here." Her laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Please don't be ridiculous. Michael, Leo, Sam, and Daisy are my children. I gave birth to them. I have their original birth certificates. I am their legal mother." The lawyer opened his briefcase and took out documents. "Mrs. Miller, my client has decided to resume her maternal responsibilities. The minors must return to their biological mother." "You're insane!" I shouted, standing up from the couch. "You abandoned them 10 years ago. I raised them, I fed them, I took them to the doctor, I paid for their schools. And I thank you for that," Stephanie replied, filing a nail. "But that doesn't give you legal rights over them. I never signed any adoption papers. I never gave up my parental rights. I simply loaned them to you." "Loaned?" The word burned inside me like acid. 10 years of sleepless nights, of illnesses, of birthdays celebrated with pennies, of staying up when they had nightmares, all reduced to a loan. "Besides," she continued with that cruel smile, "I want my share of this house. Mom and Dad left it to both of us, 50-50. I never claimed my half, but now I need it." My world came crashing down. The house. Our house. The only asset we had, where we had built memories, where the children had grown up, where Michael had taken his first steps as a responsible little man, where Daisy had learned to read, where the twins had built their first wooden cars. "This house has been our home for 10 years, I said, trying to keep my composure. "The children grew up here. It's all we have. That's precisely why I need it, Stephanie answered. Robert's restaurant went bankrupt last year. We need capital to start over. This little house is worth enough to give us a new beginning. A new beginning. For her, at the cost of destroying ours. Just then, the twins came home from school. Sam and Leo were 16, tall and strong, hard-working like their older brother. They froze at the door, staring at the woman sitting in our living room. "Hello, my loves," Stephanie said in a syrupy voice. "Aren't you going to say hello to your mother?" The twins looked at me, confused. They had grown up calling me Mama Grace. They knew they had another mother somewhere. But to them, I was their everyday reality. "Our mom is right here," Sam said, pointing at me. "You're the lady who sent us letters." Stephanie's expression hardened. "I'm Stephanie, your biological mother, and I've come to take you to live with me in Miami." "To Miami?" Leo asked. "Why would we go? Our school is here, our friends, our jobs." "Yes, because the twins also worked part-time to help with household expenses. Leo at a taqueria, Sam as a helper at a mechanic's shop. They had learned the value of work, of family, of shared sacrifice. Because you'll have better opportunities there," Stephanie lied. "Private schools, new clothes, everything you can't have here." Michael arrived from work at that moment. At 23, he was a grown man, with calloused hands and a noble gaze. He worked at a hardware store and studied accounting at night. Seeing Stephanie, he stopped in his tracks. "What is she doing here?" he asked in a controlled voice. "Michael, my beautiful boy," Stephanie said, standing up. "Look how you've grown. You look just like your father." "My father left before I was born," Michael replied. "My family is here, with the only mother I know." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Young man, you are of legal age, so you cannot be forced to do anything. But your minor siblings must return with their biological mother if she so chooses." "Minors?" I asked. "Daisy just turned 17. She only has 1 year until she's an adult." "A year is enough time for her to get used to her new life," Stephanie said. "Besides, the twins are only 16. Legally, they're my children, and they can live where I decide." Daisy came out of the kitchen, her eyes full of tears. "I'm not going anywhere. Mama Grace is my mom. My school is here. I want to study nursing here." "There are nursing schools in Miami too, and better ones," Stephanie retorted. "Grace, you've served your purpose. You took care of them while I got established. Now that I have financial stability, I can take care of them properly." Financial stability. After 10 years of silence, of abandoning them like stray dogs, now she spoke of financial stability. And where was that stability when Michael had pneumonia and I didn't have money for his medicine? I yelled at her. Where was it when Daisy needed glasses and I worked double shifts for 3 months to pay for them? Where was it when the twins wanted to study music and I sold my sewing machine to buy them a used guitar? "Those were temporary sacrifices," she replied without flinching. "Now I can give them what they really deserve. A successful mother, a middle-class life, real opportunities." Michael approached the lawyer. "What do we need to do to stop this?" "Young man, your biological mother has all the legal rights. Unless you can prove willful abandonment, gross negligence, or that she poses a danger to the minors." "She abandoned them for 10 years, Sam shouted. "Isn't that abandonment?" "Abandonment is failing to send child support," the lawyer explained. "My client has proof that she sent money regularly, $50 every 3 months. That was her legal justification to reclaim children she hadn't raised, didn't know, and had left on my doorstep like packages." "You have 1 week to decide if we do this the easy way or the hard way," Stephanie said, standing up. "But the children are coming with me, and I want my share of the house. They are my rights, and I will exercise them." They left, leaving an envelope with official documents. A custody lawsuit. A petition for the division of property. Court summons. Cold words that turned 10 years of love into a legal problem. That night, the 5 of us sat at the kitchen table and cried together. For the first time in a decade, I didn't know what to tell them. I didn't know how to protect them from the law, from money, from a mother who was claiming them like property after having discarded them like trash. "Mama Grace," Daisy said, taking my hand, "we're not going. We'll find a way." But I knew that justice doesn't always favor love. Sometimes it favors money, paperwork, and those who know how to use the system. And Stephanie had learned to use all of that while I only knew how to use my heart. The following days were a nightmare of legal papers and sleepless nights. I looked for lawyers all over San Antonio, but none would take the case without a retainer I didn't have. $5,000 minimum, they told me. And that was just to get started. My entire month's salary wasn't enough even for the initial fees. It was Michael who gave me the idea that would change everything. Mama Grace, what if she can't find us when she comes for us? We were having a silent breakfast, each lost in thought. The twins had barely touched their food. Daisy's eyes were swollen from crying, and I felt like a cornered animal. We can't run away, my love. That would be actual kidnapping. I'm not talking about running, Michael said with that maturity that broke my soul. I'm talking about not being available. The twins and Daisy could stay with a friend's family while we sort this out. Sam looked up. My girlfriend Sophia said her parents can take us in for a few days. They know our situation. And I can stay with my friend Rosa, Daisy added. Her parents love me. They always say I'm like another daughter to them. And Leo? I asked. I'll stay with you, Mama Grace. Someone has to look after you. My boy. My rebellious Leo, who had always been the most protective of them all. At 16, he already looked like a man, with strong arms from carrying crates at the taqueria where he worked. It was risky, but it was our only option to buy time. That same afternoon, while I was at work, the kids executed the plan. When I got home, I found only Leo waiting for me with a sad smile. They're safe now, Mama Grace. Now we can fight without being afraid she'll take them. On Friday, Stephanie arrived with a bigger SUV and 2 men who looked like hired bodyguards. She knocked on the door with the arrogance of someone who believes the world owes them obedience. Grace, I'm here for the children. I hope you have their things ready. They're not here, I replied with a calmness I didn't feel. Her face contorted. What do you mean they're not here? Where are my children? Safe, away from you. She pushed past me into the house, followed by her companions. They searched every room, every closet, under the beds. The house felt violated by their strange hands touching our personal things. This is kidnapping, she screamed when she confirmed that no one else was there but Leo and me. I'm going to call the police. Call them, I said. Explain to them why a mother who abandoned her children for 10 years suddenly wants them back just when she needs money from the sale of this house. Her face filled with hatred. You're a jealous bitch who could never have her own kids. That's why you're clinging to mine like a leech. Those words hurt more than any physical blow. But for the first time in my life, I didn't let them break me. You're right. I could never have my own children, but I had something better. I had children adopted by love, not by blood. Children who chose me as their mother every single day for 10 years. I'm going to sue you for kidnapping. Sue me. But you'll have to explain to a judge why your children would rather hide than go with you. She left in a fury, but not before warning me that this wasn't over. The men with her looked at me with something resembling pity before following her. That night, Leo and I ate in silence. I had cooked for 5 out of habit, and the table looked empty with only 2 plates. Do you think we did the right thing? My boy asked. I don't know, my love, but for the first time in my life, I didn't let myself be walked all over. That has to count for something. The following days were a hell of court summons. Stephanie had made good on her threat. She sued me for child abduction. I had to get a public defender, a young recent graduate named Ed Morales who took the case more out of compassion than for money. Mrs. Miller, the situation is very complicated, he explained in his borrowed office. Technically, you are withholding minors who are not legally yours, but they don't want to go with her. That helps, but it's not enough. We need to prove that Mrs. Stephanie poses a danger to the minors, or that the abandonment was with the intent to relinquish her maternal rights. How do I prove that? We need witnesses, people who saw the original abandonment, who can testify to her absence over these 10 years, who can confirm that you have been the only real mother figure in their lives. I started making a mental list. Mrs. Aurora, my neighbor who had seen everything from the beginning. Mr. Peterson, my former boss at the workshop, who knew how my life had suddenly been upended by 4 children. The teachers at school who knew me as the mom at every meeting. The doctors who had seen me bring the sick children in for years. But while I was gathering testimonies, Stephanie was playing a stronger hand. She had money for expensive lawyers, for private investigators who found where the children were hiding. One Tuesday night, while I was having dinner with Leo, my phone rang. It was Sam, crying. "Mama Grace, they came for us. Some men with the police. They said we had to go with them for a psychological evaluation." My blood ran cold. "Where are you?" "At a CPS office. They separated us. Daisy is crying a lot. She says she wants to come home to you. My love, don't say anything that could hurt you. Just tell the truth, that I've taken care of you, that you love me, that you don't want to go with her." "We already did, Mama Grace. But the woman who interviewed us seemed to be on her side. She asked if you told us what to say." I hung up, feeling the world collapse again. Stephanie had managed to get the system involved, and now my children were being evaluated as if they were disputed objects. I didn't sleep that night. I walked through the house, remembering every corner where we had built memories. The living room where we watched movies huddled on the couch. The kitchen where they learned to cook. The bedrooms where they grew from children to almost adults. The next morning, Ed called me with terrible news. "Mrs. Miller, CPS has recommended that the minors be temporarily handed over to their biological mother while the case is resolved. They argue she can provide them with better economic conditions and that she has all the legal rights on her side. And what they want doesn't matter? It matters, but it's not decisive. They are minors, and legally, they are considered not to have the full capacity to decide on their long-term welfare." I sat on the front step of my house, watching the neighborhood life go by. Kids going to school, mothers carrying groceries, stray dogs looking for food. Everything was the same, but my world had been shattered. Leo sat next to me and hugged me. "Don't give up, Mama Grace. We can still fight." "With what, my love? I have no money, no papers, no rights. I only have love, and apparently that's not enough. It's enough for us." That afternoon, when I came home from work, I found the three of them in the living room. Daisy, Sam, and Michael were back. They were dirty, tired, but they were there. "How did you escape?" "We didn't escape," Michael said. "We told the people at CPS that we're almost adults, that we can decide for ourselves where we want to live. Sam and I turn 18 in a few months, Daisy in a year. We told them we won't cooperate with any forced relocation. And Daisy? I told them I'd rather be in a foster home than go with a woman I don't know," my girl replied with a determination that filled me with both pride and terror. That night, having dinner together again, I understood something important. My children had grown up. They were no longer the scared kids who had arrived 10 years ago. They were strong, determined young people who knew what they wanted and were willing to fight for it. But I also knew Stephanie wouldn't give up. She had too much at stake. Her pride, her need for money, her image as a successful woman who had reclaimed her children. The war was just beginning, and I had just learned how to fight. The summons arrived on a Monday morning. Official paper, family court seal, cold print that turned 10 years of love into just another court case. "Final custody hearing," it said. Stephanie had requested an immediate resolution, and the judge had agreed. We would all have to appear, she, I, and the 4 children, so that a stranger could decide who had the right to be called Mom. Ed, my public defender, had prepared me for the worst. "Mrs. Miller, I have to be honest with you. The odds are against you. Stephanie has all the paperwork in order, a good lawyer, and can prove financial solvency. All we have is emotional testimony. Doesn't that count for anything?" "It counts, but it's not decisive. The system favors financial stability and biological rights over the emotional bond." The night before the hearing, the 5 of us sat in the living room. It felt like a vigil, all of us aware that it could be our last night together as a family. Michael was 23, legally free, but he knew that if he lost his siblings, a part of him would die too. The twins would turn 18 in 4 months, so close and yet so far from legal freedom. Daisy had just turned 17, the cruelest year of her life because one more year would have saved her from all this. "Whatever happens tomorrow," I told them, my voice trembling, "I want you to know that these last 10 years have been the best of my life. You gave me a purpose. You taught me what it means to love unconditionally." "Mama Grace, don't talk like it's goodbye," Daisy said, hugging me. We're going to win. And if we don't, then we'll wait, Sam replied. I turn 18 in October, Leo in November. As soon as we're legal, we're coming back to you. What about me? Daisy asked, tears in her eyes. I have to wait a whole year. You won't be alone, little sister, Michael said. We'll watch out for you. And in a year, when you turn 18, we'll throw you the best welcome home party ever. The Bexar County Family Court was a gray building that smelled of dampness and despair. Hallways filled with broken families, crying children, lawyers talking in low voices about destinies decided by signatures on paper. Stephanie arrived looking impeccable. A navy blue suit, heels that echoed with authority on the tile floor, perfect makeup that showed no crack of insecurity. Her lawyer carried a briefcase that seemed to contain all the evidence needed to dismantle my world. I wore my best dress, the black one I used for weddings and funerals, and my uncomfortable shoes that made noise when I walked. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel completely defenseless. I had something Stephanie would never have, the genuine love of my children. The judge was an older man with a tired face who had seen too many families destroy themselves to be surprised by one more. He read the files with the efficiency of someone processing cases on an assembly line. Mrs. Stephanie Miller, please explain the reasons for petitioning for the custody of your minor children after a 10-year absence. Stephanie stood with rehearsed elegance. Your Honor, for the past 10 years, I have worked tirelessly to establish a solid financial foundation to provide my children with the opportunities they deserve. I have a thriving business in Miami, a 3-bedroom house with a pool, and the ability to finance their college educations. Liar. Her restaurant had gone bankrupt, she had told me so herself, but she had the paperwork to back up her lies. Bank statements, photos of a luxurious house, letters of commercial recommendation. During my absence, she continued, I am deeply grateful to my sister Grace for taking care of my children, but now that I have the necessary stability, it is my right and my responsibility to resume my role as mother. Mrs. Grace Miller, the judge said, turning to me, you have served as the de facto guardian of these minors. What are your arguments for retaining custody? I stood up, my legs trembling. Your Honor, I don't want to retain anyone. These children arrived at my home abandoned 10 years ago. Their mother left them without explanation, without resources, without a return date. I raised them not because I had a legal right, but because they needed love, food, education, and someone to believe in them. My voice broke a little, but I continued. I don't have a house with a pool. I don't have large bank accounts. I have calloused hands from working double shifts to pay for their schooling. I have dark circles under my eyes from sleepless nights when they were sick. I have a heart that breaks just thinking about losing them. Do you believe you can provide them with better economic opportunities than their biological mother? No, Your Honor. I can't give them swimming lessons or private schools or trips to Europe, but I can give them something money can't buy. The certainty that I will never, ever abandon them. Stephanie's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, with all due respect, sentimental arguments cannot be placed above the economic well-being of the minors. My client has all the legal and financial resources to provide them with a prosperous future. Let's call the minors, the judge decided. Michael entered first, tall, serious, with the dignity he had learned from working since he was 13. Mr. Miller, you are of legal age, so this decision does not directly affect you. But as the older brother, what is your opinion on your minor sibling's situation? Your Honor, Grace Miller is the only mother we have ever known. Stephanie abandoned us when I was 9. I don't remember her voice. I don't remember her ever hugging me. I don't remember a single night she tucked me in. Grace taught us to read, took us to the doctor, worked until she was sick to give us what we needed. Do you consider their current economic situation to be adequate? We're poor, Your Honor. I won't deny it. But we're poor together, as a family. We learned the value of hard work, of helping each other, of knowing that love can't be bought in a department store. The twins entered together, as they always did everything. Sam spoke for both of them. We don't want to go to Miami. Our jobs are here, our school, our friends. This woman says she's our mom, but moms don't disappear for 10 years and come back when they need something. Something? The judge asked. The house, Your Honor. She wants to sell us along with the house. We're a package deal to her. Finally, Daisy entered. My beautiful girl. 17 years old, and with more maturity than many adults. Miss Miller, you are less than a year from the age of majority. What is your preference? I prefer to stay with my Mama Grace, Your Honor. She taught me how to walk. She took care of me when I had chicken pox. She helped me with my homework every single day for 10 years. That woman is a stranger to me. Stephanie shot up, furious. I am your biological mother. I gave birth to you. I nursed you. For 3 years. Daisy replied with a coldness that surprised me. Then you abandoned me for 10. The math doesn't work in your favor, ma'am. The silence in the courtroom was thick. The judge reviewed papers, weighing testimony against documents, love against money, biological rights against emotional rights. Mrs. Stephanie Miller, why did you decide to reclaim your children at this specific time? It was the question I had been waiting for throughout the hearing. Stephanie hesitated for the first time. Because now I have the necessary financial stability to, according to the documents you submitted, you have had financial stability for 3 years. Why did you not reclaim them sooner? Another uncomfortable silence. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. Your Honor, my client has been preparing the best possible conditions for her children's return. And the house you are petitioning for in the division of property? Is that necessary for the minor's well-being? It is. It is part of the family inheritance that is legally mine. There it was. The truth we all knew, but no one had said directly. She wasn't here for motherly love. She was here for money, for an inheritance she had ignored for 10 years until she needed it. The judge closed the folder and looked at all of us. I will issue my ruling in 48 hours. You may be excused. We left the courthouse in silence. Stephanie and her lawyer left in their luxury SUV, talking quietly about legal strategies. The 5 of us walked to the bus stop, united by something stronger than blood, by 10 years of choosing each other, every single day. Do you think we'll win? Leo asked me on the bus. I don't know, my love, but whatever happens, we've already won the most important thing. What's that? We know what a real family is, and no one can ever take that away from us. 48 hours. 2 days that felt like entire years, where every minute crawled by like a wounded snail. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I walked through the house, touching the walls like someone saying goodbye to a love they might never see again. The kids tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. Michael kept going to work, the twins to school, Daisy to her classes, but I saw they were different. As if they were carrying an invisible weight on their shoulders. As if every daily activity was an act of resistance against the possibility of it all ending. On Wednesday at 3 p.m, the phone rang. It was Ed, my lawyer. Mrs. Miller, you need to come to the courthouse immediately. The judge is going to read the verdict. My legs trembled. Do you have any idea what he decided? I don't know, ma'am, but please hurry. I arrived at the courthouse with my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Stephanie was already there, nervous but elegant as always, scrolling through her phone with anxious movements. The kids came running from their respective places. They had dropped everything when I called them. The judge entered with a thick folder under his arm. His expression revealed nothing. That professional mask he had perfected after years of splitting families apart and putting others together. After careful review of all testimonies, documents, and evidence presented, he began in a monotone voice. This court has reached the following conclusions. The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. First, it is undeniable that Mrs. Stephanie Miller is the biological mother of the minors Leo, Sam, and Daisy Miller. My heart stopped. Stephanie smiled in anticipated triumph. Second, it is equally undeniable that Mrs. Grace Miller has served as the de facto mother for 10 consecutive years, assuming full responsibility for the well-being, education, and emotional development of said minors. Third, the judge continued, the abandonment of the minors by their biological mother for a decade constitutes a tacit waiver of her maternal rights, regardless of the sporadic sending of insufficient funds. Stephanie went pale. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Fourth, the minors' testimonies are unanimous and compelling. They recognize Mrs. Grace Miller as their sole and true maternal figure, and express their categorical refusal to be relocated with their biological mother. Therefore, the judge said, his voice rising, this court resolves to grant permanent custody of the minors Leo, Sam, and Daisy Miller to Mrs. Grace Ann Miller, recognizing her moral and legal right as their de facto adoptive mother. Had I heard correctly? The words echoed in my head like sounds in a cave. Permanent custody? To me? This is an injustice, Stephanie screamed, jumping to her feet violently. They are my children. I gave birth to them. Mrs. Miller, the judge said in a firm voice. Giving birth does not make someone a mother. Raising a child does. You had 10 years to exercise your maternal rights and chose not to. You cannot pretend to reclaim them now that it is financially convenient for you. I'm going to appeal. This isn't over. That is your right, ma'am. But until a higher court decides otherwise, the minors will remain in the custody of Mrs. Grace Miller. The judge closed the folder and walked toward the door, but before leaving, he stopped and looked at us. Mrs. Miller, in my 30 years as a family court judge, I've seen many cases. Few have moved me as much as yours. These young people were lucky to find a real mother. I left the courthouse floating. Literally floating. My feet didn't touch the ground. My ears were ringing. My heart was pounding like a drum solo at a rock concert. The children all hugged me at once, forming a human knot of arms, tears, and hysterical laughter. We won, Mama Grace! We won! Daisy shouted, crying and laughing at the same time. Stephanie stormed out of the courthouse like a summer thunderstorm, furious and destructive. She yelled horrible things at me as she walked to her SUV, threats of appeals and lawsuits, insults about my poverty and my infertility. They didn't hurt me anymore. Her words bounced off me like rain on a tin roof. That night, we celebrated with pizza and soda bought from the corner store. We didn't have money for a fancy restaurant, but we had something better. The legal certainty that we were a family, forever. Now you're officially our mom, Sam said, raising his soda cup as if it were champagne. I was always your mom, my love. A judge just confirmed it. Michael hugged me. Do you know what this means, Mama Grace? What, honey? It means you can finally rest. You don't have to fight for us anymore. We're yours forever. I cried that night, but for the first time in 10 years, they were tears of pure joy. I stayed awake watching my 4 children sleep, because now they were legally my children, and planning the future we could finally build without fear. The days that followed were a revelation. Without the constant threat of losing the children, I began to see possibilities that hadn't existed before. Ed helped me file the formal adoption papers, change their last names, and get new birth certificates with my name listed as the mother. Do you want to take my last name? I asked them one afternoon. Can we be Miller Miller? Leo asked, laughing. Sounds weird. We can just use Miller, Daisy said. After all, we've always been your Miller kids. 3 weeks after the verdict, as I was sewing in the living room like every other night, Daisy came to me with a piece of paper. Mama Grace, look what I found. It was a brochure for a nursing school in Austin. That's very expensive, my love. I know. But Sam, Leo, and I were talking. The 3 of us are going to keep working and studying. We can help pay for me to go to nursing school and for Michael to finish his accounting degree. No, my loves, you need to focus on your own studies. Mama Grace, Michael said, sitting next to me, for 10 years you supported us all by yourself. Now there are 4 strong young adults here. It's our turn to take care of you. This was new to me. For so long, I had been the one to care, to protect, to solve problems. The idea of them wanting to take care of me was strange and wonderful. A month later, I received a call that would change everything again. It was a woman named Rose Martinez. Mrs. Grace Miller? I'm a producer for a national television show. We heard about your story through a contact at the Bexar County Courthouse. We'd like to invite you to share your experience on national television. On television? What for? Your case has become well known among social workers and family lawyers. It's an inspiring example of what real motherhood means. Many women could benefit from hearing your story. The idea terrified me, but the kids convinced me. Mama Grace, your story can help other families like ours, Daisy said. Other women who are raising children they didn't give birth to, but love as their own. The show was taped on a Tuesday in April at a studio in New York City. It was my first time on a plane. My first time in the Big Apple. My first time under studio lights. I told our story in front of the cameras, with my 4 children sitting in the front row, applauding me. I spoke about the abandonment, the years of sacrifice, the legal battle, and the final victory. I cried on national television, but not from sadness, from pride for the family we had built together. The program aired 3 weeks later. That night, the whole neighborhood gathered at our local community center to watch me on the big screen they usually used for football games. "That's our Grace," shouted Mrs. Aurora, my neighbor, the one we always knew had a heart of gold. The calls started coming the next day. Women from all over the country telling me similar stories, asking for advice, sharing their own struggles with adopted children or grandchildren they were raising as their own. A woman from Arizona told me she was raising her daughter's 3 children due to a drug problem. Another from Florida had informally adopted the twins her sister had abandoned. One more from California was caring for 5 grandchildren after her son died in an accident. I realized that our story was not unique. There were thousands of women like me across the country, raising children of the heart, fighting without legal recognition, loving without limits the children that others had cast aside. I decided to do something about it. With the help of Ed and some contacts I made after the show, I created a nonprofit organization, Mothers of the Heart, Inc. Our goal was to help women raising non-biological children obtain legal guardianship, access social services, and find emotional support from other women who understood their situation. The first meeting was in my living room. 12 women from different parts of San Antonio showed up. Some were raising grandchildren, others nieces and nephews. One was even caring for the children of her best friend who had died of cancer. "Mrs. Miller," one of them said, "for the first time in years, I don't feel alone in this fight." 6 months after the court ruling, Stephanie showed up again. But this time she came alone, without lawyers, without threats. She knocked on the door on a Sunday morning while we were having a family breakfast. The kids tensed up when they saw her, but there was no longer fear in their eyes. Only cold indifference. "What do you want, Stephanie?" I asked, not inviting her in. I want to talk to my children." "Talk." She addressed them with a trembling voice, a far cry from the arrogant woman I had known months before. I know things didn't turn out the way I expected. I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" Michael asked. "Abandoning your children isn't a mistake. It's a choice. I wanted to tell you that I always loved you, even if I didn't show it well." "Love is shown by staying," Daisy replied, "not by leaving." Stephanie left that Sunday without getting what she came for: forgiveness, reconciliation, a second chance that was no longer on the table. That afternoon, sitting in the backyard watching the sunset, Leo asked me, "Do you think we'll ever be able to forgive her?" "I don't know, my love. But it doesn't matter anymore. We have something better than forgiveness. We have peace. And no one can take that away from us." 5 years have passed since that ruling changed our lives forever. Today is Sunday, March 15th, 2029, and I'm sitting on the patio of my new house. Yes, a new house. In the Alamo Heights area, watching the sunset as I write these lines in my journal. At 57, I've finally learned that life can surprise you when you least expect it. Michael is a certified public accountant now. He has his own accounting firm for small businesses, and 3 times a week he comes over for breakfast before heading to work. He married Sandra 2 years ago, an elementary school teacher who loves him as much as I did from the first day he arrived, scared, at my house. They call me Grace, but Sandra insists I'm more of a mother than a mother-in-law. The twins, Sam and Leo, are now 21. Sam studied automotive technology and has his own repair shop on the South Side. Leo decided to study culinary arts and works as a chef at a restaurant on the Riverwalk. On weekends, he cooks for the whole family, and his Texas-style brisket is already famous among the neighbors. But it's Daisy who fills me with the most pride. My girl finished her nursing degree with honors and now works at University Hospital. Every day, she saves lives, cares for the sick, and comforts families. When I see her in her white scrubs, I remember the little 3-year-old who arrived crying with a one-eyed teddy bear, and my heart swells with happiness. The Mothers of the Heart organization grew more than I ever imagined. We have chapters in 12 states, We have helped over 1,000 women obtain legal guardianship of the children they're raising. We have partnerships with the National Child Protective Services, support from the Department of Health and Human Services, and we even received a commendation from the White House last year. 3 times a week, I travel across the country giving talks at universities, family courts, and community centers. I tell our story. The story of a barren woman who became a mother of 4, of a seamstress who learned to fight the system, of a family chosen by the heart instead of by blood. The letters I receive both break and mend my heart. Women who write to tell me my story inspired them to formally adopt their grandchildren. Grandmothers who fought for and won custody after seeing my interview on television. Aunts who found the courage to say no to irresponsible sisters who wanted to reclaim children they had abandoned years before. Last week, I received a letter from a woman in New Mexico who told me, "Grace, you taught me that being a mother isn't about giving birth. It's about staying. I now have legal custody of my 3 grandchildren, and I sleep peacefully knowing no one can take them from me. My new house is modest but beautiful. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a large kitchen where everyone fits when they come for Sunday dinner, and this patio where I sit every evening to reflect on the strange paths life takes. I bought it with the royalties from my book. Yes, I wrote a book. Mother by Choice, A Story of Love Beyond Blood, was published 2 years ago and has been reprinted 5 times. I never thought a seamstress from San Antonio would write a book that people wanted to read. But it turns out that stories of true love always find hearts that need them. Family Sundays are my sacred ritual. Everyone comes. Michael with Sandra, the twins with their girlfriends, Daisy with Hector, her doctor boyfriend who she met in school, and who loves her with the same intensity she uses to care for her patients. We cook together, laugh remembering stories from when they were little, and plan vacations we can now afford. Remember, Mama Grace, when you bought us that used guitar so we could study music? Leo asked me last Sunday. You said you were working extra hours to pay for it, but you never told us you sold your sewing machine. How did you know? Mrs. Aurora told us recently. She said you cried for 3 days after you gave it away, but you never let us see it. These revelations from the past move me and embarrass me at the same time. They remember details of sacrifices I thought I had perfectly hidden, but they also remember the hugs, the shared dinners, the homework done together at the kitchen table. Mama Grace, Daisy said to me as we washed dishes after the meal, do you ever regret taking us in? The question took me by surprise. Why do you ask that, my love? Because sometimes I think about everything you sacrificed. Your youth, your dreams, your peace. You could have had an easier life. I dried my hands and hugged her. Daisy, before you all, I didn't have a life. I had a routine, I had a job, I had an empty house. You gave me a purpose. You taught me what unconditional love means. You made me the woman I am today. You really don't regret anything? Not a thing, my girl. Not the sleepless nights, not the worries, not the fights with your biological mother. It was all worth it to get to this moment. Stephanie never appealed the verdict, as she had threatened. Life taught her its own lesson. Robert left her 6 months after she lost the case, taking what little money they had left. She ended up alone in Miami, working as a waitress in tourist restaurants, occasionally sending WhatsApp messages asking how her kids were, messages that no one answers. Last year, she tried to contact me directly. She wrote me a long letter asking for forgiveness, explaining that she had been sick with depression, that she had made bad decisions, that she wanted a chance to meet her grandchildren. Because yes, I have grandchildren now. Michael and Sandra had twins last year, Grace Hope and Michael Alexander. When I held them for the first time, I cried, remembering when Michael came to my house at 9 years old, serious and responsible, carrying the weight of being the oldest brother. Why Grace Hope? I asked Sandra when they told me the names. Because you taught me that the most beautiful name for a girl is the name of a woman who knows how to love without limits. My daughter-in-law replied, hugging me. Sam is getting married next year to Rocio, a nurse who works with Daisy. Leo is engaged to Alejandra, a chef he met in culinary school. Daisy and Hector plan to marry after he finishes his specialization in pediatrics. They have all told me they want me to be the one to walk them down the aisle, as both father and mother. You gave us the life that matters, Michael says. A life of the heart. My nights are no longer lonely. I have so many projects, so many women to help, so many conferences to prepare, that sometimes I think I need more hours in the day. But I always make time to call each of my children before I go to sleep. It is my ritual, to hear their voices, to know they are well, to remind them that I love them. Sometimes, when I'm out here on the patio looking at the stars, I think about that 42-year-old woman who took in 4 abandoned children without knowing what to do with them. She was a broken woman who believed she was barren and useless, who worked as a seamstress with no ambition other than to survive another day. That woman couldn't have imagined that those children would save her as much as she saved them. She didn't know she would become a writer, a public speaker, a leader of a national movement for adoptive mothers. She couldn't have imagined that her story of abandonment and love would be told on television, written in books, and studied at universities. But most of all, she didn't know that the human heart is capable of growing infinitely when it is fed by true love. Today, as I write these final lines in my journal, I get a WhatsApp message from Michael. Mama Grace, the twins took their first steps today. Grace Hope walked straight to the photo of you with the 4 of us. I think she recognized her grandmother of the heart. I smile reading the message. A new generation is growing up knowing that family is built with love, not blood. That the most important mothers are the ones who stay, the ones who fight, the ones who never give up. I close my journal and go inside. Tomorrow, I have a conference in Dallas, and after that, a meeting with officials from Texas CPS who want to implement our support program for adoptive mothers. But tonight, I am simply Grace Ann Miller, the barren woman who became a mother of 4, a grandmother of 2, and a mentor to thousands. The woman who learned that miracles don't always arrive as we expect, but they always arrive when we need them most. And you, who have listened this far, have you lived through or do you know someone who has experienced something similar? Have you seen families built by the heart instead of by blood? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there, there's a woman raising children she didn't give birth to, loving without limits. And she needs to know she is not alone in that beautiful battle. Motherhood of the heart is the purest of all, and we all deserve to be recognized for the love we give without asking for anything in return.